Hey history buffs. In today's video, we climb into the freezing, rumbling belly of a German supply truck Opel Blitz, if you're lucky. A patched-up horse-drawn cart, if you're not Tandu. Follow the forgotten frontline lifeline. The drivers. You're not here to lead charges or pose for propaganda photos. You're here to keep engines fed, boots warm, and rifles shooting. You are now a supply truck driver on the Eastern Front, and the odds aren't exactly in your favor. Before you fall asleep, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if stories from deep inside World War II are your kind of thing. Let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from and what time it is. It always amazes me how far these slow, dusty stories manage to march. Now, get comfortable. Let your mind slow down. We're stepping into another time, no headlines. Just the quiet moments that shaped a generation. You're standing next to your truck in a clearing somewhere near Smolensk. The mud here doesn't splash, it swallows. Your boots make a wet pop with every step, and the map in your hand Maya's, well, be a napkin. The road markings don't match, the rivers are in the wrong places, and villages appear that shouldn't exist. You glance over at your commander and Obergefritter, with helpful voice and 1,000-yard stare, wait for some kind of briefing. He mutters something about Route 47, which definitely isn't on your map. The engine coughs itself awake, grumbling like it also thinks this is a bad idea. The Opel Blitz isn't built for elegance. It's a metal showbox with wheels. The canvas roof flaps like loose laundry. You're hauling crates marked with black stencils, Kartoffel, munition, Vertraulich, potatoes, ammo, something confidential, maybe secrets. You don't ask. This is your first run. Welcome to the logistics chain where the stakes are just as high, but the glamour is considerably war. Frontline soldiers call you rear rats when they're in a good mood and cowards when they're not. Funny thing is, you're the reason their rifles don't click empty and their stew doesn't taste like regret, but works. Your convoy rolls out with a sputter and a groan. It's barely dawn, and the sky is the color of old bandages. The line of trucks stretches like a sleepy serpent over the frost-bitten road. You fall into rhythm, third truck in line. Behind a guy named Fuchs, whose taillight is held on with string and optimism. The road quickly turns from cobbled stone to something more abstract. Every 50 meters, there's a pothole pretending to be a crater. Russian mud is not just mud. It's political. It resists. It remembers Napoleon. German engineers joked that it has a grudge, but by now, nobody's laughing. The Blitz slides sideways even at crawling speed. You countersteer like you're rowing a canoe. Your breath clouds up the windshield. The heater stopped working last week, and you're wearing everything you own, including a second pair of socks that someone insists are made from rabbit wool. They itch like punishment. Beside you, on the cracked leather seat, sits a thermos with ersatz coffee and a half loaf of black bread, hard enough to chip enamel. You think about taking a bite. Then you remember that's last guy chipped a molar on his and started whistling through his teeth. You decide to wait. It takes about 40 minutes before you hit your first checkpoint. 2 Feldgendarmerie, with metal gorgets and suspicious eyes. They walk like the war owes them something, and everyone else is late paying. You hand over your papers, trying to look less clueless than you feel. They flip through your orders like they're looking for a joke that isn't there. Finally, one nods, slaps the truck twice, and waves you through. You drive on, deeper into this vast frozen nowhere. The trees grow denser, darker. Pines like silent sentries. Here's your first history nugget. The German military stretched over 150,000 trucks, thin across the Eastern Front by late 1941. Most weren't built for Russian conditions. Few had proper winterization. Opel Blitzes broke down so often that entire motor pools were turned into cannibalized graveyards for spare parts. But that doesn't help you now, because you just missed a turn. You're staring at 3 diverging paths, none labeled, none paved, and your map has all the authority. of a fortune cookie. Behind you, the fourth truck honks one sharp, impatient. Fuchs keeps rolling forward. You choose the middle path, mostly because it's the least aggressive looking. The trees close in tighter, and the mud becomes slush. After another hour, you pass a burned-out T-26 tank, half sunken into the ground, like it's tried to crawl away, and failed. No signs of crew, just a discarded boot, and some bullet holes that tell stories you don't want to hear. Back in the cab, the radio crackles with static. Someone's shouting in code. Probably HQ yelling about delays and unacceptable loss of time. You reach for the receiver, then don't. You're not even sure the signal reaches this. Deep and honestly, what would you say? Sorry, the mud is alive and my truck is clinically depressed. You keep going. You try to think of something else, anything. You remember your training. Barely. It mostly involved how not to work the axles, and how to field repair a fuel line with chewing gum and wire. You weren't told about what to do when you find an abandoned supply cache filled with crates labeled in Cyrillic, or how to handle seeing a fox dart across the road with someone's glove in its mouth. That's another oddity you've learned. The Eastern Front is full of foxes. Not the animal, Thothus too, but clever types. Locals who pretend to help, but count your crates. Men in mismatched uniforms. Kids who salute with the wrong hand. Historians still argue whether the majority of flockals in occupied territories were cooperative, neutral, or actively resistant, but you're pretty sure that bakery lady in Vitebsk was selling your route to someone. She smiled too much. Dusk comes fast. You flick on the headlights, though one is out, and the other flickers like it's haunted. The cold deepens. The truck rattles like it's trying to disassemble itself out. Aftertist, and just as your stomach growls for the third time, the road opens into a small clearing. There, scattered among bare trees, are the rest of the convoy trucks parked in a lazy crescent, men squatting near fires burning slow and low. You pull in, engine wheezing in relief. No tents, no signs, just smoke curling upward into a sky that looks ready to snow. You made it through day one, kind of. The clearing smells like damp wool and fake coffee. Trucks huddle like beasts in the night, their engines still ticking and cooling, frames creaking in protest. You climb down from the cab, knees stiff, back aching. The seat imprint still stamped into your bones. Someone hands you a tin cup before you can even ask. It's warm, sort of, brownish, vague-liquid. You sip and immediately regret it. They call it Kriegskaffee, or war coffee. It's roasted barley, acorns, maybe chicory, if you're lucky. No caffeine, no comfort, just the illusion of warmth and the grim camaraderie of shared suffering. One guy swears his tastes like burnt trooper. Another claims the trick is to add a pinch of salt. Nobody agrees, but everyone drinks it. It's not about flavor. It's about ritual. You settle on an overturned crate near Thefir. Sparks drift upward like little deserters trying to escape. Someone's passing around a tin of sardines with a spoon that has teeth marks in the handle. You're still holding your ersatz brew, watching your breath fog in the air when someone taps you on the shoulder. First run, the man asks. You nod. Then tonight, you're on guard. Of course you are. There's a rhythm to convoy life that only reveals itself in repetition. Drive, park, guard, sleep badly, repeat. You're not just a driver. You're a lookout, a loader, a mechanic, and occasionally when things get weird, a translator for things you barely understand. Like why the last truck has been silent for an hour, or why there are boot prints circling the firewood stack that don't match anyone's boots. As night drops its full weight, you grab your rifle and walk the perimeter. The snow is fresh, too fresh, the kind that muffles sound and makes the world feel padded and suspicious. The firelight glows weakly behind you as you make your rounds. Ears tuned for branches snapping or rows that sound too deliberate. You're not supposed to be this far from the front lines, But front and rear are just ideas out here. One wrong turn and you're the front. You pass by the last truck Fuchs truck. He's inside, fast asleep, mouth open, radio playing, something slow and crackly. You knock on the window. He waves you off without waking up. Typical. You walk on, the cold finding its way through every seam in your coat. Here's something odd. Most of the convoy drivers aren't actually trained for this. The Wehrmacht started dragging in farmers, postmen, anyone with a driver's license. By 1942, supply drivers included men over 40, teenagers underage, and even a few conscripted mechanics from other branches. You once met a guy who drove circus trucks in Hamburg. He still whistled when he reversed. You finish your round and return to the fire. Someone's roasting something suspiciously unlabeled on a stick. You politely decline. Your stomach is brave, but not foolish. You sit. You wait. You listen. The conversations are strange at night, half in whispers, half in grunts. Men talk about food, always food. Bread that didn't crumble, sausages that didn't bounce, a rare apple, a captured can of Spam, the rumor of butter. Someone claims he saw a Cokelet bar last week. Nobody believes him. You also learn the art of convoy humor. Morbid, dry, and immediate. What's faster than a blitz on ice? The retreat. Or, what's the difference between a frontline unit and logistics? Logistics doesn't know who's shooting at them. It's not exactly cabaret, but it keeps your mind away from what's outside the ring of firelight. Eventually, your relief shows up, a private with an acne-scarred face and a scarf that smells like kerosene. You trade the rifle and the same 5 warnings. Watch the woods, mind the dogs, don't shoot at snow. You crawl back into your cab and curl up on the bench seat, jacket under your head, blanket over your legs, the whole truck groaning as it cools. Sleep doesn't come easily. You drift in and out, the kind of sleep where your brain replays thesum to memories, in a loop your mother stirring soup, and a pothole you hit 4 hours ago. Outside, the wind shifts, the fire pops. Somewhere, a tree groans, like it's about to fall, but never does. At one point, you wake up sweating, heart pounding, certain someone just whispered your name. But it was only the canvas flapping, at least you hope it was. You wake again, to gray light, the kind that makes everything look like it's been dusted with ash. The fire's out. Men aerial ready, moving, coughing, packing, banging on frozen doors. One truck won't start. You're not surprised. The driver has the hood up and is swearing in 3 dialects, trying to unstick a fuel line with a pencil stub and a prayer. You go to the supply crate and pull out your breakfast, a biscuit so dry it could double as roofing tile, and a smear of marmalade so faint it might just be optimistic rust. Someone gives you a pat on the back and mutters, "Day 2. That's when it gets real. He's right. Because convoy day 2 is when fatigue becomes structural. Your eyes feel too big, your neck too tight, and the truck has developed a new rattle that wasn't there yesterday. You roll out slow, tires fighting against rutted snowpats. There's a stretch where you drive with one wheel on Theverage too. Avoid a section that swallowed another truck last month. No one ever found the chassis. That's another unspoken rule: don't stop. Not unless ordered. Not unless something is visibly on fire. The longer you're idle, the more things go wrong. Stukas, partisans, even your own HQ, with sudden updates. Always be moving, even if it's slow. About mid-morning, your convoy hits a bottleneck near a frozen stream, a bridge if you can call it. It spans across, like a rickety apology. Planks, lashed together, a few barrels wedged in for support. The lead truck stops. Everyone else idles behind, engines grumbling. A Feldwebel gets out and surveys the scene. He shrugs, then waves the first truck on. It groans across, bouncing like a drunk elk. Everyone holds their breath. It makes it your turn. You ease forward. Tires slipping on the entry ramp. The whole bridge creaks. You're sure the wood under your front axle is younger than you are. Halfway across, the truck leans hard to the right. You instinctively lean left, as if your 70-kilo frame will counterbalance to tons of steel and sausages. You make it barely. Someone jokes about charging toll. Nobody laughs. You keep moving, past scorched trees, abandoned bunkers, and a signpost, twisted by mortar fire. It still reads Minsk in crooked letters, probably still wrong. Later you find a peculiar sight pianoing the snow, just sitting there, no house nearby, no tracks. Keys exposed, a few broken. You stopped truck, just long enough to run a finger across the notes. A single sound rings out, bright and absurd, like a ghost trying to remember music. Then you climb back in and keep going. That's the kind of war you're in. Long stretches of absurdity, interrupted by moments of slow dread. That night, the convoy camps near a half-destroyed rail station. You get the same coffee, the same stories, and a new guard shift. You sit, you sip, you wonder if that piano is still there. You learn quickly that there's an art to not getting bombed. It's not in any handbook, and no one teaches you unless you count overheard warnings, mumbled over tins of stew, or carved into latrine doors like grim little folk spells. Park under trees. Don't bunch up. Keep the trucks facing out. Engines. Warm. And when you hear that high-pitched whine above the clouds, don't freeze. Don't look up. Just run. It's mid-morning on your third day, and you're already behind schedule. The sun's out, surprisingly, painting the treetops gold, which should be beautiful, but feels more like an invitation. Planes love sunny days. You've been told that the Stukas and Il-2 South can't resist convoys like yours. A crawling buffet of unarmored trucks, barely defended, stretching down a road that can't decide if it's gravel or mud. You're the sixth truck in line today. The air smells like cold metal, wet wood, and exhaust. The frost is melting just enough to make everything damp again. Up ahead, someone waves a red cloth. It's not a signal, he's just drying his socks. Then you hear it. Not a whistle or a scream, not yet. Just a shift in the wind, a change in the background hum of life, then dash buzz. The kind of buzz that crawls into your back teeth. You hear it before you see anything, then a glint in the sky, too small to be a bird, too fast to be ignored. The driver in front of you yells something, and within seconds, it's chaos. The convoy scatters not like trained troops, but like people who know panic too well. You turn the wheel hard and veer off the road into a copse of trees. The branches slap against the windshield like panicked fingers. You cut the engine and roll down your window, listening, and then it happens. A whine, a scream, a shriek, and the impact just behind you, where Fuchs' truck used to be. A sound like God dropping a toolbox. You flinch, but you don't look back. You've been told not to. You crouch low in the cab, hands on the dash, whispering a prayer you barely remember. Something your grandma used to say during storms. The trees shudder as a second blast goes off. The Stuka dive bomber Junkers Ru, 87. The one with the sirens bolted on for psychologic affects, not even accurate half the time. But that scream does the job anyway. It makes men panic, makes horses bolt. It makes you consider whether those trees over there might just accept you as a new root system. Historians still argue whether the Ru 87 wasterly effective by late war standards. It was slow, lightly armored, and vulnerable to fighters. Bhutan, a quiet forest road in occupied territory. When you have no air cover and no warning, it doesn't matter. One bomb is one too many. You stay crouched, listening to your heart thump. The noise fades, then returns, further off. The plane has moved on, perhaps chasing another column, or maybe just circling for fun. Either way, you're still here. You open the cab door and climb out slowly, legs wobbling. The road is scarred, still smoking. Fuchs' truck is gone, just gone. No fire. Just shredded crates and a twisted axle. The rest of the convoy begins. To regroup, trucks pulling out from ditches and trees like scared animals sniffing for danger. One man emerges from a bush, carrying a crate of potatoes, like a wounded comrade. "Still good," he mutters. You nod. It's either that or laugh. They send runners back to check for any signs of the crew, but most of the men know better than to hope. The officers say nothing. There's a strange etiquette around these moments. No drama, no crying, just tightening straps and glancing up at the sky, as if daring it to try again. You learn something else today. Always drive with a little space between you and the truck ahead, close enough to follow, far enough that a single bomb won't take you both. That space becomes sacred. It's your buffer, your chance to slam the brakes and veer into the unknown if needed. After a delay, the column moves on. Slower now. Quiet. You think about how fast things unravel. 10 seconds of noise and chaos, and the rest of the day is echo. That night, you camp near a collapsed barn. You're paired with a new driver Heller who insists on sleeping under the truck. For better acoustics. He says he can hear trouble coming through the axle. You sip your evening brew beside a low fire. The coffee tastes worse than usual. Someone's used engine coolant to rinse out the pot. Nobody says anything. You ask an older driver Jansen how many bombings he's been through. 14, he says. 15 if you count the one that missed by a kilometer but scared our horse to death. That's right, some convoys still use horse-drawn carts, especially further east, where fuel is low and roads are myths. You passed one yesterday. 2 men huddled in wool cloaks, pulling a cart full of medical supplies behind a shivering mare. They tipped their hats when you drove by. You waved back. Everyone's in this mess together, even the animals. There's a theory someone shares over stew. Bombers only hit moving targets. So if you feel like you're a target, he says, stirring, then stand still. It confuses the gods. Nobody quite agrees, but it becomes the new superstition. That night, you hear another plane. No bombs, just the hum. And you lie there, pretending it's a lullaby. The next day is foggy. Visibility's down to a few truck lengths. That should be safer, right? Planes can't see you. But at Alsamians, you can't see anything either. The convoy slows to a crawl, and your world becomes a great tunnel of exhaust, branches, and slush. At one point, you see wreckage. In Thatcher's a downed plane. German markings, bent propeller, no sign of the pilot. Someone painted "Never Again" on the wing in white chalk. Probably another driver. You stop long enough to pee against the tree and wonder how many people died here without anyone noticing. The forest doesn't tell. It just absorbs. Around midday, you pass through a village that was bombed last week. Charred roofs, shattered glass, a child's shoe in the mud, a goat tied to a signpost, chewing on newspaper. An old woman offers you a basket of apples. The lieutenant warns you not to take anything. You take one anyway. It's bruised and sour, but you eat it. The driver behind you honks twice. You're back on the road. Later, you spot something painted on a barn. Die Strage Kent Keen Mitleid. The road has no mercy. Someone added a smiley face next to it, just for irony. That evening, someone pulls out a harmonica, plays a tune that drifts up into the trees. You lie in the cab, watching the last of the smoke rise from the fire pit, and wonder what song you'd want stuck in your head if tomorrow's air raid is your last. Then you close your eyes and drift, not into peace, but into a kind of practiced resignation. This is just the job. Drive, park, hope, repeat. You've survived one more day without getting bombed, and the coffee's still terrible. The engine won't start. It's 5:30 in the morning, and the sky's still black, stars fading like tired campfire sparks. You're already up, already freezing, and already regretting every decision that led you to this moment. You twist the ignition again, The starter groans. The truck lurches once in protest, then goes silent again. You stare at dash, as if intimidation will help. Welcome to winter in Russia. You climb out, boots crunching, through a crust of fresh snow that fell overnight, like a final insult. The air is so cold it snaps in your lungs. Even your breath seems reluctant to leave your mouth. The Blitz sits like a stubborn mule, half covered in frost, the canvas and back crackling as it stiffens. You open the hood and peer into the frozen puzzle of wires and pipes. The oil looks like porridge. The fuel line has the rigidity of glass. Your fingers already ache, and you haven't touched anything yet. Another driver walks past, shaking his head. Didn't drain the lines, he asks. I did. Didn't matter. You fish out a rag and a bit of twine your field repair kit, such as it is, and start coaxing life back into the vehicle. One of the mechanics once told you that the Opel Blitz is like a grumpy old man. You can get him moving, but only after enough swearing and coffee. You're all out of coffee. The cold has a personality here. It's not just a temperature. It seeps into hinges, gums up the gears, makes the bolts moan and the tires square. Russian winter doesn't arrive at ambushes. One day it's damp and miserable. The next, it's a glittering hellscape that freezes the laces shut and makes spit crack mid-air. Historians still argue whether the Wehrmacht understand the Russian winter, or simply gambled that victory would come before it mattered. Either way, you're living the consequence of that decision in real time. No one issued you a proper winter coat. Your gloves are thin wool. You've layered every shirt you own, and still your toes feel like ceramic. Finally, the engine coughs once. Then again, you coax it along like an old dog. Gentle pats, whispered promises. Eventually, with a sputter and a low growl, the Blitz decides to live another day. The relief washes over you like actual heat, but you're not going anywhere just yet. Another truck is frozen to the ground. Literally, its tires are iced into the slush. 4 men and a spade are trying to liberate it. You join them. The handle of the shovel burns through your gloves. Every scoop throws up a mix of ice, mud, and old cigarette butts. 30 minutes later, the convoy finally gets moving. Slowly, a caravan of reluctant beasts dragging itself into the pale light of morning. You keep one hand on the wheel and the other over the heater vent, which is only slightly warmer than your breath. The road is a suggestion, more ice than gravel. Each turn is a gamble. The tires find no grip, only momentum and prayer. The truck slides at the slightest curve, fishtailing, like a drunken reindeer. You overcorrect, undercorrect, then do both simultaneously. Behind you, someone skids into a ditch. Nobody stops. You just note it and keep going. The driver will either get out or catch up or be replaced. By midday, your left foot has gone numb. Not pins and needles numb, just gone. You thump it occasionally against the door to check if it's still there. Feels like boots stuffed with snow and regret. The officer riding shotgun in the lead truck orders a brief halt. Not for safety, for urination. 5 minutes. Now enduring no smoking. No conversation with locals. And especially no slipping. You climb out stiffly. One of the new guys tries to light a cigarette, and his lighter snaps in half from the cold. Another guy pees too close to the truck's rear wheel and gets splashed by slush. Nobody laughs. Not today. Your thermos contains yesterday's tea, now a miniature glacier. You break it open with the butt of your rifle and suck a chip of leaf-flavored ice. Luxury. And then comes the first true breakdown. The truck ahead of you shudders to a stop. No warning, no smoke, just stillness. The driver throws open the door and leaps out, shouting something about the gearbox. He's right, it's jammed, won't shift past second. The convoy halts. You pull alongside and help lift the hood. Steam wafts out like a sigh. It's not just the gearbox. It's everything. The hoses, the clutch, the transmission fluid. The truck is as frozen inside as the landscaper on it. Two mechanics crouch beside the engine and mutter technical incantations. One taps the carburetor with a spoon. Another produces a candle and tries to warm a junction box. Elsewhere, he crosses himself before lighting it. This is convoy maintenance, Eastern Front style. A mix of superstition, improvisation, and mild despair. Eventually, the decision is made. Transfer the cargo. You've grown. It's ammunition, heavy, cold, awkward. You and 3 others unload crate after crate, your gloves slick with frost, shoulders aching. The crates thud into your truck, like dead weight. By the time you finish, you've lost feeling in your wrists. You climb back in and glance at the dash. A new rattle. Of course. The convoy moves again, slower, each truck more burdened, each driver more brittle. Sometime in the afternoon, the snow returns not gently, but like a bad mood. Thick flakes swirl in from the east, covering the road, the windshield, the side mirrors. You drive blind, trusting the shape of the man in front of you and the ruts in the road. You squint to make out the landscape, but it's gone. Just white. Up, down, left, right, white. Your eyelids feel heavy. Not from sleep, but from staring too hard at nothing. You try to remember what day it is. You don't. Someone said it's Thursday, or maybe Monday. You don't argue. The only clue is your beard. It's longer, iced, at the edges. You rub your chin and wince. The skin underneath feels like sandpaper. You wonder how the locals do it. The Russians, the peasants you see at the edge of fields, chopping wood in coats made of who knows what. They barely flinch. You've seen a woman hauling firewood barefoot, and another stirring a pot over a fire in a shell-damaged house, like nothing had happened. They're not serving the winter. They're outliving it. One guy in your unit swears by animal fat rubbed on the cheeks. Another recommends vodka shots every hour. A third suggests spiritual death attempt. You go with 2 out of 3. When the convoy finally halts again for the night, it's nearly dark. You park on a slope, tires chalked with bricks, engine block wrapped in blanket, like a sick child. You don't turn it off this time. Too risky. You let it idle all night, humming like a lullaby of rust. Inside the cab, you huddle under 2 coats, 1 blanket, and half a newspaper stuffed into your shirt. You chew on a bit of bread that tastes like last week's coal. Your teeth ache from the cold. You try to write a letter, pen in gloved hand, ink frozen, fingers shaking. You manage 4 words. Still alive, cold. Then the pen cracks. That night, in the half-sleep between exhaustion and frozen dreams, you hear someone whisper, "I'd trade my medals for a warm toilet." You chuckle, quietly, because honestly, you would too. The locals watch everything. They don't wave. They don't speak. They just stand there on doorsteps, in the shadows of barns, behind fences that barely reach their knees and watch. Old men with chiseled cheeks. Women with arms crossed and scarves tied tight. Children with bare hands and big eyes, silent as snowfall, still as statues. You roll past them in your groaning blitz, axles squeaking, windshield streaked with road, salt and guilt. You try not to meet their eyes, but some intimities do, and sometimes they nod, just once. Other times they spit. This is your 5th supply run through the same patch of villages, and you still don't know the names. Not the real ones. Your map calls one Dorf 12, and the signs are either shot full of holes, or painted over. In red, you call them what the drivers call them: Cabbage Town, Goat Alley, 3 Chimney Hollow, and the people. They don't forget. That's the thing. Doesn't matter what language they speak, Belarusian, Russian, Polish, they all. Which side you were on last time? Who took the last sack of flour? Who knocked down the church bell and claim it was for scrap? Some of them smile at you. But it's the kind-off smile that says, "I know where you sleep." Your officer warns you during the briefing. Don't interact unless necessary. Don't leave your vehicle unattended. don't accept food, water, or directions. But then, he also adds, if they have eggs, let me know. Because the truth is, the locals are your only shot at anything remotely fresh. Last week, a guy from your convoy traded a full can of petrol for 3 onions and a bundle off beets. Another swapped a spare spark plug for a boiled potato and nearly wept with joy. One even got a kiss from a girl who wore perfume that smelled like apples and gunpowder. He's been talking about her ever since. Probably poisoned, someone muttered. He ate it anyway. You're passing through Goat Alley again today. It's not on your official route, but the main road's flooded and the bridge collapsed last month. HQ has an updated map. You follow Fuchsies, he's back, or maybe just another driver with the same name. They're interchangeable now. Who swears he knows a back road? You bump along a narrow lane lined with crooked houses, wood smoke curling up into a pale sky. A few chickens scatter. A dog barks once and then vanishes behind a cart, stacked with hay and broken furniture. There's a woman at a well. She watches your truck roll by, arms still, bucket halfway up the rope. Doesn't blink. You glance at your side mirror. She's still watching. You don't scare them. That's what unnerves you. You used to. At least, that's what thesteries say. The Wehrmacht would roll into villages, boots polished, rifles gleaming, and the locals would tremble. That's gone now, replaced with this tired contempt, cautious calculation, or something colder. Something that suggests they've seen worse than you, and maybe they have. You slow the truck as the lane narrows, ruts deepen now, to jolt your spine. A cart's blocking part of the path. You honked twice, polite but firm. No response. You get out, rifle slung but not raised. An old man steps from the doorway. Wears a cap too big for his head and a coat too small for his arms. He limps over and, wordlessly, lifts the handle of the cart and drags it just far enough aside for you to squeeze through. You nod. He spits. You climb back in. Historians still debate the nature of civilian cooperation on the Eastern Front. Was it driven by survival, ideology, revenge, maybe all three? Collaborators, informants, smugglers, saboteurs. They didn't wear uniforms, and they rarely carried papers. Everyone was a suspect. Everyone was watching someone. You stop later that afternoon at a village you've never seen before. No name, just a cluster of shacks and a single brick chimney coughing smoke into the wind. The officer wants to ask about road conditions ahead. He takes you and one other driver along as backup. You park the trucks near the well and walk toward the largest house, probably the headman's, based on its intact door and the small pile of chopped wood outside. A woman answers. She's maybe 30, maybe 60, it's hard to tell. War does strange things to the face. She lets you in without a word. The house smells like dried fish, damp fabric, and faintly of bleach. Inside, a child sits on a stool, eyes wide, clutching a rag doll missing gony leg. The officer does the talking. You scan the shelves. Not much. A jar of pickles, some tin bowls, a crucifix made from twigs and nails. The woman says the road ahead is flooded. She offers to show you an alternate path through the woods. The officer thanks her. She doesn't smile. Outside, the second driver whispers, "She's too helpful." You agree, but what choice do you have? Back at the trucks, you find someone streamed a valve cap from one of your rear tires. A small thing, barely noticeable, but deliberate. You fix it without a word. That night, you camp on the edge of another nameless hamlet. You post a guard, then 2, then 3. Nobody says it, but you all feel it. You're being watched. That evening, around the fire, someone tells a story about a driver who stopped for a child waving at the side of the road. Gave her a candy. 10 minutes later, the convoy hid in ambush. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Another driver shares his own tale. Swore saw the same old man in 3 different villages. Same coat, same limp, same stare. He's following us, he whispers. Nobody laughs. There's an unspoken hierarchy. Among drivers. Veterans don't talk much. Rookies talk too much. But there's one thing they all agree on. The locals know more than they say. They know which roads are mined, which houses are abandoned, which barns are hiding rifles. You once saw a boy couldn't have been older than 10 stand next to a blown-out tank with a chicken under one arm and a belt-off MG ammo over the other. He didn't flinch when the officer barked at him, just stared. The same stare you're getting now. Later, during a rare stop at a proper depot, Yachet, with a fell gendarmerie corporal, he tells you most partisans don't wear armbands or wave flags. They're not rebels, he says. They're shadows. They don't fight to win. They fight so you don't. You nod. You're beginning to understand that. The next morning, you pass through another village. A girl throws a snowball at your track. It hits the side panel with a dull thwack. You look over. She's smiling. Not a nice smile. You keep driving. On the back of one house, someone has scrawled a message in red paint, probably Russian. You don't understand it, but one of the other drivers translates, "Winter eats iron and men." You believe it. By midday, the convoy hits another checkpoint. 2 soldiers wave you down. You stop, hand over papers. They glance at your manifest, then at your truck. "What are you carrying?" one asks. "Potatoes?" you say. He thumps the side panel. "Hope they're not watching." You ask who. He just shrugs. "Everyone," as the convoy rolls forward. You glance in the mirror and spot the old man from earlier, the one who spat, standing by the road again. Watching. Always watching. You start noticing the silence first. Not the peaceful kind, this is the other sort. Heavy, dense. The kind of quiet that has corners. The kind that watches you. You're parked on the shoulder of a logging trail off the main road, waiting for a scout truck to return. The convoy's been delayed again, because the bridge up ahead is apparently not trustworthy, which is military code for, it might fall down if you look at it wrong, while the officer argues with a lieutenant about tonnage and crossing angles. You sit in your truck, fingers tapping the wheel, staring at the tree-line dot, and then you realize, no birds, no wind, no dog barking from some distant village yard, just the low creak of canvas, the occasional cough from another driver, and the steady tick of your engine cooling down. Someone mutters behind you. They say the forest is listening. You scoff, out loud. Then you stop, because it's not the kind of joke people laugh at anymore. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. Guerrillas, partisans, shadows in the birch trees, traps set under snowdrifts, grenadisted 2 tripwires stretched between tree roots. Even the saplings seem to lean in when you pass, as if trying to hear your license plate. A few days ago, a supply run vanished. Entire column, 7 trucks, gone. Somewhere west of Orsha, they found the first truck burned out, riddled with bullets. The others, still missing. Command blamed poor weather and navigation. The drivers blamed the woods. You turn to the man parked beside you. Older guy, scar on his cheek. Looks like he's driven everything from beer wagons to tanks. Partisans, you ask? He shrugs. Could be. Could also be wolves. Could be. Both. He's not joking. Historians still argue how effective Soviet partisans really were during the height of the German occupation. Some say their sabotage was exaggerated. Others insist they were the single most underestimated factor on the Eastern Front. But from where you sit in a creaking Opel Blitz, clutching a bolt-action rifle and watching a pine grove too closely, they feel very real. Your convoy finally moves again, inching along a narrow path where the branches brush your side mirrors. You flip them inward and keep your eyes ahead. The truck behind you disappears from view every time you go around a bend. It's like driving through someone else's memories. Then you see it. A sign, nailed to a tree. In Cyrillic, it's freshly painted, black letters, a red triangle. You don't know what it says, but someone in your cab does. A translator attached to your brunette kid named Schuster speaks 5 languages. Keeps a notebook of strange things he hears. He squints, then mutters. It says, "Your boots will rot before you return." You drive faster after that. A few kilometers later, you pass a clearing with 3 burned trucks. German supply rigs like yours. Still smoking, though it must have happened days ago. No people, no crates, just wreckage and 2 helmets nailed to a stump. You don't stop. That night, you don't park in a circle like usual. The officer orders a scattered arrangements, staggered, lights out. Fires are banned, smoke attracts attention, so does noise. You sit in your cab with your coat pulled up, listening. Every twig crack outside becomes a rifle. Every gust off wind, a whisper in a language you don't know. Your breath fogs the window. You wipe it away, then wish you hadn't. You saw movement. Could have been nothing. Could have been a branch swaying. Could have been someone. You slide, the window closed. That's when Heller, the other driver, bunking near you, tells you about the time a partisan squad left calling cards. Not bombs, not bullets, just boots. Empty ones, left beside the trucks, different sizes. As if to say, we were here, we could've. You ask what they did. Moved faster after that, he says. The woods here have layers. During the day, it's hard enough. Misty narrow trails, ghost roads that appear and disappear depending on the thaw. But at night they change shape. Trees lean differently. Shadows stretch in ways that defy geometry. You start to believe they're alive, or worse, haunted by those who didn't leave. Someone insists the Soviets use children as scouts. They sneak up to the trucks and count the tires, he says. Leave a rock if they've marked you. You see a stone near your rear wheel. You're marked. That night, you check. No rock. Next morning, the column pushes forward. You're headed to a remote supply handoff, some rail station near Bishenkovichi. On paper, it's secure. In practice, it's been hit 3 times in the past month. Your cargo? Medical supplies, bread, replacement boots, and a locked crate marked Central Vortung, Central Admonition. Nobody knows what's inside. The road winds through dense forest. Visibility drops. Fog crawls across the ground like a low tide of smoke. Your hands ache on the wheel, not from cold but from tension. You're not even breathing properly anymore. You start holding your breath every time you go around a blind corner. At one point, the truck in front of you brakes suddenly. You swerve, just barely avoiding a rear end. There's a fallen log across the road. Too neat to be random. The lead officer gets out, walks over, looks at it. No wires, no mines. Still, suspicious. The drivers wait in silence while 2 soldiers push it aside. Everyone grips their rifles, a little tighter. You move on, but you don't feel safer. Around noon, you stop at a way station, if you can call it that. Just an old barn with no roof and a rusted barrel stove someone tried to fix with solder and hope. Inside, a woman sells flatbread and watered beer to anyone with spare buttons or bits of tobacco. You trade a broken compass for a boiled egg. It's greenish. You eat it anyway. Schuster leans in and shows you a postcard he found pinned to a beam dot. It's from Paris, pre-war. A woman in a hat, holding a puppy. On the back, someone scrawled in Russian, "Don't forget, we remember." You ask what that means. He shrugs. Whatever they want it to. You drive on. That evening, just before camp, you pass a scarecrow hanging from a tree. Not stuffed, not straw, just a coat, trousers, boots, and a sign around its neck. Every step you take, you don't stop. The convoy camps in a shallow ditch that night. Trucks staggered. No fires again. The cold is so sharp it feels personal. You wrap yourself in everything you own. Try to sleep. Can't. At one point, you get out to check the rear tire. Just routine. There's a rock, small, smooth, placed neatly by the wheel. You stare at it for a long time. Then you pick it up and throw it as far as you can. The depot isn't where it's supposed to be. You've been driving for hours, following a set of orders that were copied by hand twice and signed by someone whose rank you're not convinced exists. The paper says there's a supply depot north of Vitebsk, marked by a blue oil drum and a string of signal flags. But the drum is red, and the only flags you see are tattered shreds, Tito trees like they lost a fight with the wind. Fuchs pulls his truck beside yours and leans out. This it? You both stare at the clearing. There's a building, yes, Loslung, half stone, half wood. Smoke curls lazily from Abin's stovepipe. A radio antenna lists at an odd angle, like it's drunk. One solitary truck, an old Krupsitz with its hood open and no driver in sight. No guards, no crates, no sign of movement. If this is it, you say, it's very subtle. The officer riding in the lead vehicle hops out, waving your convoy forward with exaggerated confidence. He clearly doesn't want to admit he's unsure either. You park, kill the engine, and climb down. The snow here crunches with a wet hiss. Too soft for real frost. Too fresh for comfort. The depot building has one door, slightly ajar. The officer walks up, knocks because apparently thoughts protocol and steps inside. Nothing happens. You and a few others linger beside the trucks, sharing suspicious glances. Heller checks his rifle. You check your own. 10 minutes pass. Then the officer reappears. Well, someone asks. He shrugs. They say they've got no record of our delivery. You blink. They what? No record. No requisition form. No signed manifest. They say they're expecting bandages and canned meat. We've got boots and typewriter ribbons. You pull the papers from the cab and show them. They're stamped, dated, filed by some 19 Division HQ. You even have the receipt with the blotched ink. The depot clerk, a hollow-eyed sergeant with ink-stained fingers, barely looks. Not my department, he mutters. You feel something tighten in your gut. This isn't the first time this has happened. Paper trails that loop back on themselves. Orders that contradict reality. Warehouses that receive things they never requested and fail to supply what's desperately needed. Someone says, maybe, this place isn't real, it's a joke. Kind of. There's a saying among the drivers, Das Phantomlager, the Phantom Depot, a mythical location where supplies vanish, records disappear, and crates full of nothing are passed from unit to unit. Like a hot potato nobody wants to own. Some claim it was created on purpose to hide shortages. Others say it's just the logical conclusion of bureaucracy, gone rogue. Historians still argue about how much of the German war effort was crippled not by combat, but by administrative chaos, files lost, orders misrouted, units starving while warehouses were furled with socks, 200 kilometers away. You are now, quite possibly, standing in one. The officer argues with the clerk inside. You can hear it through the door. Something about command chains, signature discrepancies, and someone higher up. The clerk doesn't raise his voice. He just keeps repeating the same phrase. Not my problem. Outside, the drivers grow restless. You poke around the depot perimeter. There's a small shed with a padlock. A few fuel drums that smell more like rainwater than gasoline. One crate split open, full of wooden shoe inserts. Someone finds a bicycle leaning against back wall. No tires, no seat. Just a frame and a horn that still works. Heller honks at once. The sound echoes into the trees like it doesn't want to come back. You check your manifest again. Bootsius. Typewriter ribbonsius. A sack of malleus. A box marked field theater props. Fragile Y. No idea. You don't even ask anymore. After half an hour, the officer waves everyone over. They won't take the cargo. Murmurs rise. They say their registry's full. Storage is at capacity. Unless we have a direct handover order from regimental command, they won't accept the delivery. But this is the depot, you say. He gives you a look that says, "Is it though?" You ask what happens now? "We hold the cargo until we reach the next forward depot." "How far is that?" He grimaces. "Unknown," which is military speak for, "somewhere not here." You sigh, climb back into the cab, and stare at the half-eaten loaf of rye bread on your dash dot. It's frozen stiff. You knock it once against the steering wheel. Sounds like a WOODBLOCK dot. Someone starts the engine, the others follow. The Krupp truck with the open hood never moves. Maybe broken. Maybe it's decorative. As you roll out of the clearing, you glance in the rearview mirror. The depot already looks smaller, fainter, like it's being swallowed by the snow. You say nothing. The convoy follows a new route, now one that barely qualifies as a road. It twists through gullies and overgrown fields, sometimes dipping beneath. Sagging power lines that crackle like fire, telling secrets. The sun is already setting, casting everything in washed-out amber. You drive until the stars return. That night, you park near a stream and light a small fire, risking it. Just this once. Nobody talks much. Then Heller asks, "What if it's all like that, the whole war? Just depots that didn't want anything. Orders that go nowhere." You chew on the question. Eventually you say, "Then I guess we keep driving." He nods. Someone produces a harmonica, plays 3 notes before it seizes with cold. You all laugh, quietly. A driver from the back of the column walks over, thin, tired. He sits by the fire and takes off one boot. Inside is a potato. "Found it at the depot," he says, "under a chair. Gift from the ghosts," someone mutters. You roast it anyway. That night, you dream of doors that won't open, papers that crumble when touched, and supply clerks made of smoke. You wake up with a start. The fire's gone out. Frost has crept across the windshield like ivy. You're not sure where you are anymore, but you still have a truck. And tomorrow, it needs to move. The shortcut is supposed to save you 2 hours. That's what the officer says. Anyway, pointing at a thin line on a crumpled map that looks more like a pencil smudge than a road. It's a forest route. Locals use it. Good terrain. His tone doesn't inspire confidence. He's holding the map upside down. Fuchs raises an eyebrow. "Did we ask the locals?" The officer ignores him. You set off mid-morning under a sky that's trying to snow but hasn't committed yet. The shortcut begins as a narrow, hard-packed dirt path, flanked by gnarled birch trees and the occasional mossy milestone marker. At first it's manageable. A little bumpy, but dry. You can even see sunlight breaking through the branches, and for a moment, you think, maybe this one time it'll go right. That optimism lasts 10 minutes. Then the path narrows. The mud thickens. The roots twist up from the ground, like angry vein. You downshift and crawl forward, each bump knocking your knees against the dashboard. Somewhere behind you, a crate shifts, and you hear the sound of boots thudding inside the box. They sound like they want out. The trees close in, branches, clawing at the truck like they want to peel the paint. The air smells like wet bark and pine needle sand. Something else, soil, maybe, or fear. You glance at the fuel gauge. Just under half. Enough if nothing goes wrong. Something always goes wrong. Historians still debate whether the Wehrmacht's over-reliance on roads not rails contributed to their logistical nightmares. But out here, you'd love a real road. Even a gravel one. This isn't infrastructure. This is a dare. The first sign of real trouble comes when you hit a slope. Not steep just enough to notice. The mud's slick, the tires spin, and for one moment the truck slides sideways toward a ditch. You yank the wheel, tap the brake, feel the whole vehicle, shudder like it's trying to decide if it wants to flip. It doesn't. Yet, behind you, someone honks. The convoy halts. Engines idle. Birds scatter. Fuchs walks up, waving his gloves. "We turning around?" The officer gets out, squints at the track ahead. "No," he says. We continue. Nobody cheers. You get out to walk the next 100 meters. Just ahead, the road splits. One branch looks passable. The other dips into a hollow where the trees lean so tight they could shake hands over your roof. Guess which one the map says to take? Of course. You climb back in and coax the blitz forward, slowly, wheels grumbling. The mud here doesn't bev, like normal mud. It's sticky and elastic, like dough with a grudge. Every rotation of the tires feels like dragging the weight of a decision you didn't make. And then it happens. A checkpoint. Not a real one, not German. Just two trees felled across the road, their trunks stripped clean. A sign nailed to one reads, "Stoppin'." Not Russian, not military, just ominous. You stop. The officer signals for everyone to hold position. You sit there for 10 minutes, maybe 20. No movement, no sound. The radio crackles, but says nothing useful. Someone suggests clearing the path manually. Someone else suggests turning around. Then, from the woods, a man appears, alone, civilian clothes, fur hat, leather boots to clean, no rifle, no expression. He walks slowly toward the lead truck, hands empty, palms out. You can't make out his face. The officer steps forward, shouting in halting Russian. The man says nothing. He just stands there, looking at the convoy, at the tires, at the covered crates. Then he raises one arm and points to the left, into the woods. You wait. He points again, then turns and walks away. Nobody follows. Eventually, the officer mutters something under his breath, then orders a reversal. Backing up takes forever. Mud churns, tires slip, gears grind. You nearly clip a tree. Someone else does. It takes 3 men to push their truck free. You burn nearly an hour turning around. The shortcut is a bust. You finally reach the main road again by dusk, tired, more skeptical than ever of local shortcuts. You didn't fire a shot. You didn't lose a truck, but it feels like something was taken anyway. Later that night, parked on a patch of firm ground near a bombed-out schoolhouse, someone hands you a cup of hot water, not coffee, just water. You sip it like it's soup. The men around the fire are quiet. Heller finally breaks the silence. "Who was that man?" Fuchs replies, "The road tax collector." You laugh, but softly. Someone else adds, "That wasn't a man." No one asks what they meant. You roll out your blanket in the truck bed, beneath a pile of ration sacks. The night is sharp with wind and the whisper of trees. You close your eyes, and in the stillness, you picture that pointing arm. The silence, the choice you didn't take. In the morning, there's frost on the canvas, and a single deliberate footprint in the mud by your tire. Just one. The snow starts before breakfast, thick and aimless, big lazy flakes drifting down, like ash, from a sky that looks washed out and wrung dry. You chew on a ration biscuit that might be older than you. The edge is worn round, from bumping around in your coat pocket. No coffee this morning, no tea. The water bucket cracked in, the frost overnight, and your canteen is mostly ice with an echo of yesterday's soup. Today isn't about driving. Today is about waiting. The road ahead is blocked again too deep, with snow too treacherous for the heavier trucks. Word is, the engineers are working on a bypass with logs and prayer. Until then, the convoy is parked in a long, staggered line beside a standoff pine trees that look like they're shrugging. You pass the time like you always do on days like this, slowly and with suspicion. You play cards with the guys from Thiscon fuel truck. One of them cheats, so obviously it loops back around to binge charming. Someone else tries to teach chess, using bottle caps and a crate lid. The board has 12 squares instead of 8. Nobody complains. You nap in the cab. Read an old newspaper you've had folded under your seat for weeks. The headlines might as well be hieroglyphs. It's from Berlin, dated 6 months ago. The lead story is about a parade. You can't remember who won, what, or whether it mattered. There's a crossword on the back, half filled. You finish it with nonsense words, and still feel accomplished. The cold presses in. Not dramatic, just steady. It leaks into your boots, finds the gaps in your gloves, settles behind your eyes like a hangover. Heller tries to light a fire under the truck to keep the oil from turning solid again. Uses newspaper and kindling soaked in petrol. The smoke is blue and smells like melted boots. Historians often describe operational pauses as strategic necessities, time to regroup, resupply, repair. From where you're sitting, there, just intermissions for dread. Time to think. Time to remember how long you've been out here. Time to wonder if that depot you're heading toward still exists, or if it ever did. The sky starts to dim by mid-afternoon. The soon is more of an idea than an object. You take another walk up and down the line of trucks, mostly just to move. It's eerily quiet. Men sit in the cabs, some with books, others just staring. A few are playing music from a portable gramophone. The record skips, over and over, the same half bar of a march that never marches forward. You pass one truck with a snowman sitting in the passenger seat. Someone took the time to give it button eyes and a cigarette made from a pento stub. You nod at it like it's part of the team. You return to your cab and close the door, but leave the window cracked. You can't bear the stale air, the smell of unwashed wool and tired canvas. You rest your head against the glass and watch the snow blur the trees until they look like wet ink bleeding across a page. Then you hear the first crack. Not a gunshot, not quite. More like a tree branch breaking under a load it couldn't carry. You sit up. The second crack is sharper, closer, then silence again. You glance toward the woods. Nothing, then movement. It's fast, low, could be a deer, could be a shadow. You blink and it's gone. A few others poke their heads out from their trucks. One of them shouts, probably squirrels. Another shouts back, armed squirrels. Nervous laughter follows, then silence returns. You climb out and head toward the fire pit, now reduced to smoldering black slush. You warm your hands over it anyway, because hope is habit-forming. Fuchs joins you, chewing something that might have once been cheese. You hear it? You ask. He nods. Could be nothing. Could be something. Everything out here's something. You both watch the tree line. Think it's partisans. He shrugs. Think it's winter. You nod, because that's starting to feel like the same thing. Someone suggests taking turns on watch, even though there's nothing official happening. You agree? Anything to make the time feel like it matters. You take the second shift. Late night. Just after class. Whispers of conversation have turned to muffled snores. The forest is black and shapeless, a living wall of maybe. You walk. The perimeter, rifles slung but safety off. You feel like a ghost haunting your own truck. Halfway through your shift, you spot it. A footprint, just one, near the rear of the third truck. Not yours, not one of the crew's. Wrong, tread, narrow, barely sunken. Recent. You don't shout, you don't even breathe for a second. Then you follow it with your eyes, nothing. Just more snow. Untouched. You wake the officer. Show him. He says it's probably one of the drivers relieving himself. You both know that's not true, but there's no damage. No missing supplies. No alarms. Just one footprint. So nothing is done. You finish your shift. By morning, the road is blocked. The engineers say it'll be another day. Maybe two. Maybe never. You pass the time by fixing small things. Tightening bolts that don't need it. Rearranging cargo you've already organized. Writing fake letters you never planned to send. You try to write one to your mother. Get as far as Dear Muti, then stop. What do you say? Still alive, playing cards, watching shadows. Not exactly reassuring. Instead, you draw a sketch of the snowman from earlier. It feels more honest. That night, the gramophone plays again, different record this time. Something slow, a waltz. The music floats through the convoy like smoke, bending between the trucks, pooling under the stars. You fall asleep to that sound, and the snow. Always the snow. By the third day, the road opens. Or rather, the trucks stop caring that it hasn't. You start your engine. The starter hesitates, then catches. The blitz coughs, sighs, then settles into a low rumble. You follow the others out, tires crunching the frozen mud, moving slow but steady. As you leave, you glance back at the snowman in the truck seat. It's still there. Someone gave it a name tag. Jeff Ryder, Stillman. You salute and drive on. You finally eat something that resembles food. Sort of. It's day. Well, you've lost count. The convoy has stopped for the night in what was once a farmhouse. The walls are crumbling, the windows gone, the barn roof missing most of its tiles, but, well, still works. And there's a dry patch of earth near the foundation, which, by your current standards, is prime real estate. Heller pulls something from his rucksack. Guess what? I traded for this, he says, proudly holding up a wrinkled string of sausages that look like they've been through war themselves. You squint. Ammo. Spare fan belt. Criminal. He shrugs and tosses them onto a metal plate over a small fire. The smell is curious, like old meat soaked in rubber and ambition. Still, it's the most promising scent you've encountered in weeks. Your mouth waters despite your brain's protests. As the sausages hiss, you pull out your own ration pouch and add a crust of dark bread to the grill. It softens slightly, just enough to remind you that bread wasn't always this dense. The outer edge catches fire. You blow it out, call it toasted, and declare dinner served. Across the courtyard, someone's stirring a pot with a stick. You don't ask what's in it. The last time you did, the answer was mostly bark and the concept of cabbage. You all eat like kings who inherited a ruin. The sausages are chewy. Definitely not pork. Probably not beef. You chew carefully, not because it's tough, but because your teeth have become shy in this cold. One wrong bite and you'll be gumming your way back to Berlin. You sip from a tin mug of hot water flavored Funtly with a bouillon cube someone liberated from a medical kit. It tastes like salt and memory. As night settles in, so do the stories. Someone mentions the driver, who traded a bottle of schnapps for a goat, then got reassigned before heckled eat it. The goat became a mascot, rode in the passenger seat, wore a helmet, last seen in Ukraine, saluting with a raised hoof. Another tells of the time a crate of chocolate bars arrived, and men cried. Literally, cried. Not because they got some, but because they didn't. The crate had been marked for officer morale distribution. It vanished overnight. Food is currency out here, but more than that, it's emotion. A good meal is a ghost of. A bad one is a reminder of where you are. You once saw a man eat his entire lunch without chewing, just swallowed it down, eyes closed. When asked why, he said, "If I chew, I'll taste. If I taste, I'll remember better food. Then I'll cry." He was promoted 2 weeks later. Coincidence? Probably. After dinner, someone opens a tin of something labeled Ergenzungsbrotrafts Tip D, a kind of spread made from peas, oats, margarine, and what might be glue. You try it on a cracker? It tastes like damp promises. Still, you're full, or at least, less hollow. Later, you walk the edge of the camp with your tin cup, still warm in your hands. The stars are out, faint behind a thin sheet of cloud. You can hear the crackle of fire, the shuffle of boots, the murmurs of men settling into their coats. A strange peace. You pause near the barn, where the officer is arguing with someone about fuel distribution. It's always fuel or socks. You duck away before they can notice you too full to be recruited into logistics. Instead, you sit on the stone steps of the ruined farmhouse and let yourself go still. That's when you notice it. Someone moving across the field, just at the edge of the moonlight. Not fast, Not furtive. Just there walking the tree line. Then gone. You don't panic. You don't shout. You just sit. Sip your salty tea water, and wait. Eventually, the patrol makes a round. You mention what you saw. They nod. We see that a lot. One says, "What is it?" He shrugs. Ghost, scout, farmer, you, me. Hard to say. You don't sleep much that night, but not out of fear. Just thought, in the morning. Breakfast is bark bread, and something the cook claims is apple jam, though it looks suspiciously like mashed turnips with sugar. You eat it anyway. The trucks fire up, one by one, each with their own particular cough and groan. You pet the dash of your blitz and whisper encouragement. It responds with a wheeze, then roars to life. You're proud of it, this tin beast that has dragged you across half of nowhere as you load the last of the gear. You notice something tucked into your side mirror, an egg, real, uncracked, still warm. No note, no explanation. You ask around. Nobody saw anything. Nobody claims it. You cook it on the engine block during the first halt of the day. It slides, sizzles, and solidifies into the most perfect Sunnyside miracle you've had since the war began. You split it with Heller. "Now we're definitely cursed," he mutters, mouth full. You nod. Worth it. Later that day, a fuel barrel bursts open from the cold. You siphon what you can into jugs, spill half on your boots, and spend an hour smelling like fire hazard. A box of replacement socks turns out to be full of paperweights. Someone blames a warehouse clerk with bad handwriting. Someone else blames the Ministry of Supply. Everyone laughs, but only with their mouths. That evening, a guy named Baumgartner shows off his secret stash. A tin of sardines he's been hiding in his coat lining for 3 months. Ya will cheer like he found buried treasure. He opens it. It's empty. Inside is a single note, handwritten. In French. "Merci pour votre contribution." Probably a joke. Possibly a message. Definitely disappointing. You give him half your remaining sausage. That night, someone burns a handful of coffee grounds in the fire, just for the smell. It smells like home. Then it smells like ash. You fall asleep with the memory of that egg in your mouth. It's the closest thing to hope you've tasted all month. Smoke on the horizon always means something. Whether it's hope or horror, depends on who's squinting. And right now, you're squinting hard through a dirty windshield while your truck groans up another shallow hill. Its engine making the kind of sound that suggests it would rather be anything else. A barn, maybe? A sled? A pile of useful scrap. The day started clear enough, one of thus brittle winter mornings, with light so sharp it makes the snow look surgical. But now, around midday, the air thickens. The smell creeps in before the smoke. Does not firewood, not cooking. Something denser? Oil, cloth, rubber. You've smelled it before. You never forget. The officer in the lead vehicle slows the convoy. No orders over the radio, just a raised fist-fromed cab window. You roll to a halt behind him, engine idling. The silence settles in, disturbed only by the crackle of static and the occasional cough from the truck behind. The smoke stains the sky like bruised ink. It curls upward, disobeying the wind, rising in lazy pillars from just beyond the tree line. "Village," Fuchs asks. You shrug. "Or a fuel depot. Or us in 20 minutes. You don't laugh, because he's probably right. The officer steps out and confers with two others over the hood of his truck. You can't hear them, but you can guess the tone. Clipped, firm, uncertain, underneath. Eventually, one of them gestures toward the smoke, and then taps his own chest. Volunteers, naturally. And because you're lucky or unlucky, depending on your current philosophy, are chosen to drive one of 2 scouting trucks. No crates, no trailer, just your half-loaded blitz, and a passenger with a map and a pair of binoculars to fog up the moment he breathes on them. You drive off-road, tires bumping over frozen clumps of grass and half-frozen ruts that used to be someone's field. The trees thin, and then there it is. A village. or what's left of one. The roofs are half melted, walls torn open like dollhouses. Black scorch marks run up the sides off brick chimneys. Smoke still curls from a few places, not rising, just leaking. Everything smells like yesterday's fire and last week's fear. You stop at the edge of the road. The passenger raises the binoculars and peers around, scanning slowly, exhaling through his nose like a bull. Then he mutters, "No one." You get out, rifle slung but unstrapped. The air is still warm here, unnaturally so. Beneath your boots, ash mixes with snow, and the ground crunches in an unfamiliar, rubbery way. You step past a burned fence. The remains of a barn squat beside a pond, its reflection broken by ripples you can't explain. A single door hangs from its hinge, swinging just slightly. It makes a soft knock with each sway, like a question. You walk carefully. Every pile of rubble could be a body, or a stove, or both. Every shoe, every chair, every half-scorched pot is a story you don't have time to learn. There's a well in the center of the village square. A rope still hangs from the beam, taut. The bucket is gone, the crank is scorched. And beside the well, someone's written something in the soot of a broken window pane. You don't speak Russian, but you recognize the shape of a word when it was drawn by someone angry. A swirl of consonants, sharp edges, 3 lines under it, like they wanted it to shout. You turn back toward the truck. The passenger points. You follow his finger to the far side of the village. A figure, moving slowly. It's a man, limping, civilian clothes, smoke-stained, holding something to his chest. You call out. He stops, doesn't answer, just stands there. You walk toward him slowly, rifle down. When you're 20 feet away, you realize what he's holding. A chicken, still alive, barely. The man looks at you with eyes like cooled ash. Not pleading, not angry, just watching. You raise a hand. "Do you need help?" He says something. You don't understand it. Then he lifts the chicken toward you, offers it. 2 hands out. You take it. It's warm, real, feathers sticky, from smoke and panic. You nod, thanks. He nods back. Then he turns and walks away, into the ruins, disappearing. Behind the cracked frame of what might have been his home, the passenger joins you. "Do we report survivors?" You look down at the chicken. It clucks once, softly, as if to say, "Don't." "No need," you say. Back at the convoy, the officer takes one look at the smoke and waves everyone forward. No detour, no investigation. Just a brief word passed from truck to truck. Keep eyes open. No one asks questions. Not because they aren't curious, but because they're tired of answers that don't help. You drive past the village in a long, slow line. The men glance out the windows, some craning their necks to see the damage. Others keep their eyes on the road, pretending not to notice. One man crosses himself. Anothermeters. Something about partisan revenge. Historians still argue whether it was the Germans who torched the village during a retreat, or Soviet partisans trying to denazifice. You've heard both versions. Neither feels good. Both feel possible. As you pass the well, you think of the message in the soot. You wonder if it was a warning or a prayer. A few kilometers later, you stop at a wide bend in the road and make camp. No one says much. Heller makes a stew with dried lentils and some leftover onions. Fuchs plucks the chicken, which has been riding in your cab like a minor officer. Turns out, it's tough, barely edible. Still, it's warm. It fills the belly. That counts. After dinner, you stare at the fire, thinking about the man in the ruins. You wonder if he's still there, if he's alone, if he even wanted to give you the chicken, or if it was his way of saying, "Go." You wrap your coat tighter. The fire pops. Sparks drift into the dark like tiny deserters. Tomorrow, you keep driving, and you hope the next smoke you see is someone's chimney, not someone's ending. They call it a road, But it isn't. Not really. It's a sequence of holes, frozen puddles, half-frozen puddles, and tire ruts so deep they could qualify as trenches. You spend more time bouncing than driving, every jolt knocking your spine one vertebra closer to mutiny. The blitz creaks and groans beneath you, its frame complaining in every dialect of mechanical misery. You've begun naming the new rattles. Fathy pitched buzz near the axle. That's Klaus, the deep thunk every time you brake. Definitely Otto. You left the smoke-shadowed village at dawn. No more detours, no more shortcuts, just this Russian road. If you squint hard enough, you can imagine it was once passable, perhaps decades ago, when the Tsar still rode trains and horses knew their place in military logistics. But now it's mud turned to concrete, ice turned to sabotage. Frozen ruts become rails. You're not steering anymore, you're being guided, pulled forward like a tram with no conductor. Your teeth chatter, not from cold, but from thigh vibration. Even your fillings are starting to hum. Behind you, Fuchs swerves into a ditch and takes 10 minutes to get out. Using a combination of prayer, profanity, and reverse gear, you don't stop. He waves you on with one hand and beats the steering wheel with the other. At one point the road dips beneath a canopy of trees and becomes a tunnel of frozen breath. The wind cuts sideways through broken trunks. Snowdrifts pile up on one side of the road, like shy children. There's no traction, just momentum. Friction's lazy cousin. You're skating on rubber and willpower. And then come the craters. Not potholes. Craters. Shell remnants. Artillery kisses. The kind that eat tires and ask for seconds. The lead truck hits one and pops up like a startled rabbit, losing a side mirror and most of the driver's confidence. The convoy halts. Again, you step out to stretch. Bad idea. Your knees crack. Your back seizes. Your neck now turns only in increments of 15 degrees. You look down the road and see it stretching endlessly, pockmarked and smug. The officer calls for scouts again. A Fu-man walk forward to assess the damage, boots crunching over ice, breath steaming out like miniature train engines. While they're gone, you make coffee, and by coffee, you mean hot water, plus something brown, plus denial. It works, sort of. Historians often marvel at the German army's engineering, the tanks, the bridges, the precise coordination of divisions. But nobody writes odes to the roads, because the roads were never yours. They belonged to Tuthland, and the land never gave consent. Schuster, your translator, turned philosopher, sits on a crate and scribbles in a small notebook. Did you know, he says, there are entire villages that only exist in the spring. When the snow melts, they reappear. Sounds hopeful, you mutter. No, he says. It's more like haunting. The scouts return. Verdict. It's passable. If you drive like you hate your suspension, you do. The convoy moves again. And then the luck kicks in, sort of. Your front left tire pops, not explodes, just collapses. The air wheezes out like a dying accordion. You roll to a stop and curse quietly, invectively. Fuchs pulls up behind you and honks twice the cydia of a sympathy card. You climb out and inspect the damage. Sidewall shredded, probably a bit of rebar or splintered wood hiding in the snow. Maybe just bad luck. You grab the jack and a replacement from the underbed storage. Your fingers stick to the cold steel. Gloves only help so much when everything feels like it's been dipped in liquid nitrogen. Heller appears beside you, chewing on something that might have been jerky in another life. Need help? He asks. No, I thought I'd do a dance and wait for the tire to fix itself. He grins and starts loosening bolts. The replacement tire is bald, uneven, and technically illegal, even by work. You love it instantly. While you work, Schuster paces near the trillion. He stops and kneels at one point. When you finish the change, he calls over. You walk to where he's standing and see what caught his attention. A horseshoe. Old, rusted, just sitting there in the mud, half buried. He holds it up. Lucky, he says. You both laugh. You toss it in the cab anyway, because you need all the irony you can carry. Once rolling again, you catch up to Thiekenvoy in time to see them stopping at a makeshift checkpoint. Two Felgendarmeri in white. Smocks and gloves wave everyone down. They look bored, cold, suspicious. Your papers are in order. Mostly the officer glances at your manifest, grunts, and waves you on. But then he pauses. Your cargo includes potatoes. You nod. He frowns. None of the others had potatoes. You glance at the back. Probably mislabeled. He shrugs. If you say so, you drive away quickly, because you don't want him to find the extra crate in the back. The one labeled confiscated do not open. You didn't put it there. It was already loaded one. You got the truck. You've learned not to ask. The road ahead doesn't get better, but you get worse at noticing. The bouncing becomes background. The rattles, rhythm, the aching, constant. At one point, the road dips beneath a collapsed rail bridge. The metal arches hang like broken ribs. You drive under it slowly, glancing upward as if the sky might fall. And just before you exit the shadow, you see graffiti sprayed across the remaining beam. In German, Ein Leben weniger, one life less. You don't know what it means exactly, but you feel it. Later, at camp, you find yourself checking your boots. There's a nail poking through the left sole. You laugh and fix it with a piece of cardboard from the sardine crate. Dinner is stale crackers and marmalade that tastes like wartime optimism. But the fire is warm, and your truck still starts, and you haven't fallen through the road yet. So you call it a win. You're told to guard your own fuel with a bayonet. No escort, no infantry support, no assigned sentry unit with steel helmets and sharp disciplined. You, a wooden crate marked benzene, and a dented bayonet that wouldn't scare a goose. The order comes down casually, as if it's completely normal for someone hauling 50 liters of flammable gold to also be his own security detail. The reason? Fuel theft is up, the officer says. Then, with a straight face, and Bandit, getting clever. Clever, he says. You've already heard the rumors. Trucks disappearing in the night without a sound. Barrels vanishing at depots that were supposedly guarded. One story even claimed a fuel convoy was ambushed not by partisans, but by deserters, German, not Russian. They apparently rolled up in captured vesicles, speaking perfect Bavarian, took the petrol, and left without firing a shot. You don't know if it's true, but you do know one thing: people will do anything to keep moving. And out here, fuel is motion. Motion is life. So now you have a bayonet strapped to your belt and an extra magazine for your rifle that you're not entirely sure is full. Your truck is parked with the others in a staggered pattern along the tree line. Canvas covers drawn tight, fuel barrels tied down with rope, chains, and what little trust remains. You've been told to sleep lightly. You already do. That night, there's no fire, no jokes, no harmonica, only watch rotations, and silence. Thick, low silence, broken only by the occasional creak of a truck settling into the frost and the soft whisper of boots and snow. You take the second watch, starting just past midnight. The moon, Esau's sliver, barely enough to cast shadows. You pace slow circles around your vehicle, boots crunching, breath fogging, bayonet loose in your hand like a polite threat. You see nothing, hear nothing, until you do. It's soft, a whisper of movement. Not a twig snap, just a shift. You freeze, strain your ears. There, a shape, at the edge of the trees, low, crouched. You raise your rifle, but keep the barrel pointed down. Where, you call out. No answer. You call again. Still nothing. You walk forward 2 steps. 3. The shape bolts, fast. Too fast. You don't chase. You don't shoot. You wait. Then return to your truck. Next morning, one of the other drivers finds a barrel unlatched. Still there, just loosened. Another finds boot prints. Not German issue. The officer shrugs. Could have been animals. Fuchs mutters, yeah, animals that untie knots. Breakfast is stale oats, and a strange paste someone insists is pork. You chew it like an act of war. Schuster joins you, sipping hot water from a tin cup. He has circles under his eyes and a strange look on his face. I've been thinking, he says. Dangerous. About the barrels. You raise an eyebrow. He leans in. If I were them, whoever they are, I wouldn't try to steal fuel. I'd poison it. You stop chewing. He shrugs. 1 liter. 2. Taint the batch. Engine dies halfway through Thephorist. You disappear. You stare at the barrel. You don't finish your breakfast. Historians still debate the scale-off sabotage on the Eastern Front. Some claim it was rampant. Others say it's overblown. But out here, surrounded by things that creak in the night, and footprints that don't match any of your boots, the debate feels moot. You tighten the ropes on your cargo. You sleep with the rifle within arm's reach. You don't drink the mystery tea offered by a stranger near a depot the next day. Even though it smells like apples, the next fuel stop is nothing more than a shack and 2 men with frosted beards. They nod at your papers, roll out a barrel, and tap it with a length of pipe. You fill your tank slowly, listening for anything suspicious. The fuel looks fine, smells right. Still, you say a small prayer to whatever God governs combustion. As you screw the cap back on, one of the bearded men offers you a cigarette. You take it, but don't light it. Back on the road, the engine hums. That's good. Heller's truck develops a stutter. That's bad. You pull over to check. The fuel line's clogged. Probably nothing. Possibly everything. He fixes it with a rag and a sharp whistle. You both keep driving. Later, the officer tells you that 2 trucks ahead of the column had to be abandoned. Fuel fouled with water, maybe, or sand, or sugar. Nobody knows. Nobody wants to know. You sleep lighter now, even when you don't mean. 2. That night, you find a note tucked under your windshield wiper. Folded once, written in neat, even block letters. Just 1 word. Zulin count. You count your barrels. Still there. You count your tires. Still there. You count your breaths. Harder the next morning. You report the note. The officer frowns, files it in his satchel, and never mentions it again. Fuel continues to vanish. The bayonet stays at your side. It never feels sharp enough. The town was supposed to be secure. That's what the orders said. That's what the radio message repeated twice. A forward unit passed through 4 days ago, swept the area, confirmed no Soviet presence, and reported the local population as cooperative low in number. You remember those exact words because they sound safe. They aren't. You arrive, just after noon, bouncing across frostbitten cobblestones into what looks like a postcard ruined by bad luck and long war. The buildings stand. Mostly. A few are scorched. 1 roof has collapsed under snow. And there's a shutter banging open and closed like it's trying to say something. But there's no fire. Noggin shots. No visible resistance. Just stillness. Too much stillness. The convoy stops in the town square. It's wide and uneven, ringed by shops with broken window sand. Paint faded to ghosts. A fountain in the center is frozen solid, the statue of a horse now wearing a scarf of icicles. You kill the engine and step out. The air smells of smoke, dust, and something faintly sweet, like apples gone sour. There are no people. None. Not even the curious child, or the bent-backed grandmother. You usually see watching from behind a curtain. Just silence. The officer barks orders to begin unloading. The manifest says you're dropping supplies here. Field blankets, tinned meat, radio parts, and a crate labeled medical handle with care, though it's been upside down since Smolensk. You and two others pull back the canvas and start handing down boxes. The sound of boots on stone echoes far too loudly. Every cough sounds like a gunshot. Every crate you stack feels like a question no one is willing to ask out loud. You see a shadow move past a window, then nothing. Schuster leans toward you. I don't like it. Yeah? No welcome, no locals, no resistance. Just absence. You nod. I liked it better when they spit at us. A few men fan out to search nearby buildings, rifles loose, but ready. You and Fuchs stay behind, guarding the trucks, watching the doors, watching the rooftops, watching everything. One of the search teams returns. The bakery's full of ash. The oven's still warm. You raise an eyebrow. That means someone's here. Or they just left. A long pause. Or they want us to think they just left. The officer orders everyone to move faster. You finish the drop-off in record time. Crates stacked in a half-collapsed post office. Blankets dumped beside a desk still bearing a nameplate. The town remains utterly, unnervingly quiet. No cats, no dogs, no birds. It feels performed, like a play staged for an audience that never arrived. On your final pass, you spot something scratched into the base of the fountain. German, but sloppy. Rushed 2 words. Nicked Aline, not alone. You don't say anything. You just throw the last crate onto the pile and get back in the truck. The officer gives the signal. Engines cough and grumble, tires crunch, and the convoy moves out. You don't exhale until you're past the town limits, and even then, it feels premature. About 5 kilometers down the road, someone asks, "Did we leave anyone behind?" A full head count confirms, no, but the feeling lingers. That night, you camp just off the main road in a tree-covered hollow. It's quiet here, but in a softer way. The trees whisper, the wind hums, even the fire feels less judged. You sit with your mess tin and try to forget. The statue in the square, the note at the fountain, the warm oven, the missing eyes behind windows. Someone says, it's worse when they don't shoot. No one disagrees. Historians still discuss whether ghost towns like the one you passed were true evacuations, staged traps, or illusions born of fatigue. You're leaning toward a fourth option, performance, a statement, a lesson meant for someone not brave enough to teach it directly. Heller passes around a jar of something, claiming to be jam. It's not, but it's sweet, and that's rare enough to feel like treasure. You take a spoonful and close your eyes. The world slows. Then Schuster whispers, "What if they never left?" You open your eyes. He's staring into the fire. What? The town? The people? What if they're still there? Just choosing not to be seen. You want to laugh. You don't. The wind shifts. A branch falls in the woods. Everyone looks. Nothing comes of it. But nobody forgets. Next morning, you find something tied to your truck's rear axle. A strip of linen. Clean. Frayed on one side. Rolled in two. A knot like it had a purpose. You show it to the officer. He squints. Shrugs. Probably caught on something. You don't argue, but you tie it around your wrist anyway. Later, you stop for repairs outside another village. This one not abandoned, but not exactly welcoming. A boy sells eggs for a price only an officer can afford. A woman offers bread with a smile that ends too soon. A man sharpens a scythe and never breaks eye contact. You get your oil changed. Fix a bent fender with a hammer and a length of chain. You refill your canteen from a pump that leaks sideways as you leave. The same boy from earlier runs up and tosses something into the back of your truck. You turn. He's gone. You climb in and dig through the canvas. It's a toy, a small wooden truck, painted gray, wheels missing. You stare at it. You don't throw it away. You return to base like a ghost no one was expecting. It's not even really a base. Just a crumbling brick depot outside a town that used to have a name before it was shelled into memory. The signet, the gate reads Abteilung 3B Nakshab, Supply Division. 3B, but someone's crossed out the 3 and replaced it with a question mark in black paint. That feels about right. The convoy limps in just after dusk. Trucks sag on their axles, engines wheezing, canvas flapping like worn sails. You're dirty, sleep-deprived, and too tired to care that your boots are leaking again. As you pull into the yard, a man with a clipboard stares, hates your license number, and then waves you to park near a line of rusting fuel drums. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak, just scribbles and moves on like he's checking inventory in a junkyard. You cut the engine and sit in silence for a moment. The truck creaks as it cools, ticking like an old clock winding down. You rest your forehead on the wheel and exhale. Then you hear it, papier, papers. The word hits your ears like a wet sock. You look up. A Feldgendarmerie corporal stands at your window, goggles perched on his cap, a baton under one arm. His boots are polished. Yours look like they've been at war with the war. You hand him your papers. He scans them slowly, frowning with increasing interest. This says you delivered in Sector 6. You nod. We did. There is no Sector 6. You blink. There was. He lowers the papers. Not anymore. A pause. Then he waves you off. Go speak to the depot clerk. See if they have a new manifest for your return trip. Return trip? You haven't even eaten yet. You dismount stiffly and walk across the yard, boots crunching on gravel. The depot building leans at a suspicious angle, its windows frosted over, with ice and cigarette smoke. You open the door and step inside. Warmth, noise, fluorescent lights flickering like tired eyes. 3 clerks sit at desks, each surrounded by piles of papers that look untouched since autumn. One drinks tea from a tin-cup labeled property of Carl. Another is asleep, head resting on a ration tin. The third short, balding glasses that catch the light at odd angles motions you forward without looking up. Unit. You tell him manifest number. You give it. He flips through a file, pulls out a paper, hands it to you. You scan it. It's for someone else. This isn't mine. He shrugs. That's what I have. But it's for a motorcycle courier. Congratulations. You wait. He doesn't. Eventually, you ask, so what do I do now? He sighs, removes his glasses, and rubs the bridge of his nose. You wait until someone above my pay grade decides whether your route existed. If it didn't, you'll be reassigned. If it did, you'll be reprimanded for not filing a follow-up form. But I filed not with me, you didn't. You leave the building, with a new kind of headache, the paperwork kind. The kind that creeps behind your eyes, and Makasu fantasize about defecting to the post office. Just for some sense of structure, you walk back to the truck, and find a replacement driver climbing into the cab. Hey, he pauses, orders. Truck's being reassigned. To who? He shrugs. Not my department. You protest. The officer from earlier appears. Is there a problem? You want to say yes? You want to list every kilometer, every missing crate, every insult and whispered warning carved into your skin. Instead, you say, no sir. He nods, walks away. You watch the truck drive off without you. You're handed a new assignment, assisting with base operations, until further notice. No new truck, no new gear, just a clipboard and a cot in a drafty warehouse that used Tobe, a school gymnasium. The chalkboard still says Tag der Kartoffler 1937, in ghostly writing. You meet the other drivers. Most are like you, scraped raw by the road, dumped back here to wait for someone to remember they exist. A few are fresh to clean. They ask questions you don't answer. You help load crates, fuel drums, salted fish. You stamp forms. You eat cold bread with mustard powder and call it flavor. You dream of roads, and smoke, and the single egg that changed your week. One day, you see your old Blitz roll back into the yard, muddy, dented, with a new coat of paint and a different number. The driver doesn't even see you. He's too busy arguing with a mechanic about tire pressure. You walk over when no one's looking and place a note under the driver's seat. It says, "She likes to stall on cold mornings. Give her 5 seconds before the clutch, then you walk away." Historians rarely write about these in-between days. The ones filled with waiting, with forms, with shoes that don't fit, and orders that don't land, but they're real. Maybe more real than the convoys and the firefights and the frozen mud. Because this is what war also is. Standing in a line that doesn't move, carrying a crate that isn't yours, sleeping beside a man you'll never speak to, waiting for a named Tobe, called that might never be yours again. You're not sure if your route existed. You're not sure if you did, but you're still here, for now. You're sent forward again. No warning, no new boots. Just a barked order, and a slip of paper with a name you didn't recognize. A destination that isn't labeled on any map you trust, and a timeline so optimistic it feels like a dare. Critical ammo resupply, the clerk tells Yao without looking up. You're rerouted to a forward artillery position. Coordinates here. Be fast. Don't stop, and try not to break the shells. You want to say, "What if I get lost?" You want to ask, "What if I'm ambushed?" You almost whisper, "What if I die?" Instead, you salute, take the papers, and go find your new truck. She's smaller than your old Blitz. Narrower wheels, thinner canvas, labeled with chalk, Lucy. The name feels like a joke. The engine grumbles like a cat, too old for mice. You're assigned one companion, a loader named Merrick. Young, too young, smells like soap in winter, doesn't talk much, but hums a tune now and then. A lullaby, maybe, or a funeral march played backward. The two of you drive out in mid-morning haze, tires scrunching over ice. The shells and back secured with rope, and a generous helping of wishful thinking. Your orders are clear. Deliver, report, return. No detours, no exchanges, no delays. Then the clutch fails. It doesn't go with a bang, just a slipping whisper. The pedal loses tension halfway between first and second gear. You stall on a hill and coast to the shoulder, Lucy wheezing like she's ashamed. You and Merrick climb out. You pop the hood. The clutch cable hangs like a broken violin string. "Well," Merrick says, "that's not ideal." You nod. She's sensitive. You dig through the emergency kit, 2 wrenches, a pair of gloves with one missing finger, a bolt that doesn't fit anything you recognize, and a spool of wire someone's labeled Guter Drut, good wire. It isn't. Still, you jury-rig a patch using a loop and a prayer. Takes 30 minutes and half your patience. Merrick stands watch, rifle loose in his hands, eyes fixed on the woods. "I saw movement," he says at one point. You don't ask where. You finish the patch and try the engine. It coughs, catches, growls. You ease into gear. The clutch holds barely. You roll forward. Still want to be a driver. You ask, "I wanted to be a teacher." Smart man. You drive on. The road grows narrower, the snow thicker. Visibility shrinks. Adrenaline creeps in like it's watching. That's when the Luftwaffe shows up, not friendly. You don't even hear it at first. Just a low rumble, to steady, and then Merrick shouts, and you both look up. A single plane, maybe Soviet, maybe captured, circling like a lazy hawk. You gun the engine. Lucy screams. You duck behind a stand of trees, tires bouncing through underbrush, hoping the canvas camo netting over the truck blends with snow. Merrick crouches beside the cab, rifle across his lap, breathing too fast. The plane doesn't strafe, doesn't bomb. It just watches, then drifts away. But the damage is done. You wait another 10 minutes before moving. Merrick checks the shells. One shifted, but not cracked. You both exhale, like that's permission to carry on. The coordinates lead you to a crossroads, where the signs have all been removed. One arrow nailed to a pole simply reads, "Still." You laugh. Marek doesn't. You pick the left fork. 2 kilometers later, you hit another problem. A tree across the road. Fresh fall. Pine. No scorch marks. No rot. Clean break. You stop. No wind today, Marek says. Nope. You both climb out again. He covers you. You approach the tree. There's something tucked in the branches. A scarf. Green wool. Tied in a knot. You remove it carefully. Then notice the ground. Footprints. Not yours. Not Marek's. Recent. Close, too close. You retreat. No way through, Marek asks. We'd need to cut it. With what? You shrugged. You backtrack. 2 kilometers in reverse. Marek scans the woods the whole time. Knuckles white on his rifle. Eventually you reach the fork again and take the right road. You don't say it. But you both know. Someone wanted you to choose the left on, you did. And they were waiting. Historians still argue whether partisan activity was truly that organized, or if fear simply filled in the blanks. But you've stopped caring about footnotes. You care about roots. And getting Lucy to hold together long enough to reach the artillery position before sunset. By some miracle, you do. It's barely a camp for guns, dug into the frozen hillside. 6 men who haven't shaved since October, and a cook who offers you soup that smells like boiled rags. They take the ammo without ceremony, just nods and muttered thanks. One man slaps your truck like it's a horse. She's uglier than sin, he says. But you got her here. That's all that matters. You sit for a moment on an overturned crate, breathing steam. Marek eats the soup. You don't eat. The cook smiles at you with 3 teeth and says, "Careful on the way back. People vanish on this road." You nod. You believe him as you drive. Away, you notice someone scrawled a message on the side of your truck, in chalk. 1 word. Zurich return. You don't erase it. You just keep driving, back the way you came, wondering who wrote it, and whether it was meant for you or Lucy. The front folds like wet paper. No warning, no signal, just a ripple through lines that reaches you the way cold creeps in through boots, slowly. Then all at once, it starts with the radio. Static, then silence, then static again. Only now it sounds nervous. Then comes the massage, change of orders. Convoy return to fallback position, effective immediately. You glance at the map. The fallback position is 60 kilometers west. Thorodback isn't a road anymore. It's a memory. Marek looks at you from the passenger seat. We going? You nod. What's behind us? Don't ask. Nobody says retreat. But everything smells like it. The depot is half-packed when you roll in. Crates abandoned mid-lift, a field stove still smoldering, and a typewriter sitting on a bench like someone meant to finish there. Sentence but got called away forever. Someone's chalked a skull on the side of a fuel drum. You wish they hadn't. The officer gives quick orders, eyes flicking from clipboard to sky. Fuel, ammunition, medical. Everything else stays. His voice is calm, but too fast. You see it in his hands. He's already counting what he can leave behind. Some men are good at triage. Others just run. You're told to load 5 crates into Lucy. Marek helps. They're labeled central munition. You try not to ask what that includes. The last one rattles. You check the tires. She's low, but steady. You check the engine. She growls, but wakes. You check the rearview mirror and see nothing but smoke rising in the east, like a curtain falling. The convoy departs at dusk. Headlights are banned. The snow makes the world blue. You drive without speaking. You pass vehicles, facing the wrong direction. One truck burned out, its tires puddled into black glass. A staff car left at a crossroads, both doors open like it tried to escape itself. Every shape looks like it might move. Most don't. One does. It's a soldier, walking down the center of the road with no coat and a rifle slung upside down. You slow. He doesn't look at you. Just keeps walking past, lips moving. Marek opens the window. You need help. The man doesn't answer, doesn't even flinch. You keep driving. Historians will call it tactical withdrawal. You call it running with luggage. At one point, you hit a patch of ice. The truck fishtails. The crates shift. Marek shouts. You regain control, but barely. Lucy groans like she knows her limits are close. You take a break near a broken bridge. There's no fire, just breath and the ticking of engine metal. Marek lights a cigarette and offers you one. You take it. You don't smoke. You do now. Think we'll make it? He asks. Which part? He doesn't answer. Neither do you. Back on the road, you pass a group of horses pulling a cart stacked with radio parts. The driver waves once, then disappears into the trees. The horses look confused. You start to count the kilometers. 24 left. 17. 12. Then you see it. A checkpoint. German. Feldgendarmerie, reflective discs on their collars like dead moons. 3 men. 2 rifles. A folding table. A lantern. You slow? They step forward. One waves you down. You roll the window halfway. Papers. You hand them over. He scans the page, then stares at you. This cargo is not approved for movement. You blink. It's emergency resupply. Fallback order. Doesn't say that here. He taps the form. This route is restricted. Turn back. You lean forward. Sir, with respect, there's no back left to turn to. He looks at Marek, then back at you. Then he sighs and waves you forward. We never saw you. You nod. You drive. Marek exhales. What happens if we get stopped again? We keep driving. At kilometer 7, a flare goes up behind you. Red, then green, then nothing. You don't ask what it means. You just shift to second and don't stop. At kilometer 4, a body lies on the side of the road. You don't stop. At kilometer 2, Lucy starts to rattle. Hard dot. One of the crates bounces once, then twice. You stop. Marek jumps out and reties the rope. You listen to the engine breathe. She's tired. You're all tired. He slaps the side. She'll make it. You nod, and then headlights ahead. Real ones. Soft yellow. Moving slow. You squint. Not a truck? Not a tank? A bicycle? A man riding a bicycle with a lantern strapped to the handlebars and a sack over his shoulder? He's whistling. He passes you with a nod. You don't even process it. Marek says, I don't know what part of this war is real anymore. You drive the last 2 kilometers in silence. The fallback camp is a field, half mud, tents like mushrooms, a generator humming in the distance. Men sitting on crates like statues with rifles. You pull in. No one cheers. But someone points to an empty space. You park. You cut the engine. You exhale. You've made it. For now. You sit in the cab long after the noise settles. Marek sleeps beside you, head against the window. You watch the snow fall again. It looks the same here as it did in the east. But everything's changed. The last convoy out doesn't look like a convoy. It looks like a funeral procession that took a wrong turn into a scrapyard. 4 trucks, 2 carts, 1 fuel drum strapped to the back of a motorcycle that hasn't had Braca since October. You're at the head, Lucy grumbling under a lighter load than usual. The crates are gone. The cargo now is people mechanics, clerks, a field chaplain with a cracked Bible, and a quartermaster who keeps checking his pockets like he's lost his name. No one talks about what's behind you. You don't need to. The last of the forward. Base was packed in less than an hour. Fires doused. Rations dumped. Files burned. Radios smashed. A single boot sat on a table near the latrines. No one claimed it. It's probably still there. You were told, just drive west until the signs change. No one knew what that meant. The roads are barely there now, just white scars between trees. Every kilometer feels like Agambol. You steer wide around anything that looks like a bump. Could be a rock. Could be a mine. Yupa signs with names scratched off, rewritten, scratched off again. Identity seems optional now. The sun tries to rise, but changes its mind. Marek hums quietly beside you. It's not the lullaby this time, just a tune without a key. The first town you pass is empty, again, except for laundry. Strung between two buildings, frozen stiff. Shirts, a scarf, 2 pairs of trousers. No footprints, no voices. Just laundry waving goodbye. The chaplain crosses himself. You keep driving. A bridge. A man in a fur coat stops the convoy. He holds no rifle, just a red flag and a box of bread. He says nothing, just points west and hands the first driver a roll. You get nothing. You don't complain. Someone's posted a new sign on the bridge. No maps beyond this point, just memory. You drive on. The forest breaks for a moment and reveals a field of white tents. Refugees, civilians, dozens of them, maybe more. All quiet, all watching. One waves. A child. You wave back. The chaplain offers to bless them. The officer tells him later. You all know there won't be a later. Historians debate how many civilians followed retreating armies. Some say hundreds, some say millions. You see 27 faces. That's enough. Someone in the convoy starts coughing. You all tense. He stops. You pretend it didn't happen. You pass a barn with a message painted on the side. Tomorrow doesn't want us. Today barely tolerates us. You believe it. The fuel begins to run low. You check the gauge every 5 minutes. Lucy's thirsty. You try to coast on Tidone Hills, feather the clutch. Whisper encouragement. It helps. A little Marek finds a tin of sardines in his coat. You share it. It tastes like salt and victory. The wind picks up. Snow swirls like doubt. Then you see it. The last checkpoint. It's barely a shape at first. Just 2 vehicles parked at an angle. Then you see the lights dim, flickering. A lantern hangs from a shovel. 3 men step forward. One raises a hand. Not to stop. Just to say, we're here. You roll to a halt. Papers. You hand them over. He reads. He nods. You're the last, he says. You already knew. Anything behind you. You think about it. Then say, just absence. He nods again. Then he points west. There's a road 10 clicks on. Not good, but real. That's the best news you've heard in a month. You thank him. He hands you something wrapped in cloth. Take this. You unwrap it. It's a loaf of bread, still warm. No one asks where it came from. You drive on. One by one, the convoy rolls past the checkpoint. No one waves. The snow thickens. Visibility drops. Then, the final stretch. A cracked signpost reads, You have left the zone of operations. Welcome to whatever's next. You laugh, quietly, not because it's funny, but because Lucy just hiccuped, then kept going. You crest a ridge and see a valley. Lights. Actual lights. Maybe a depot, maybe a town, maybe a mirage. You don't care. It's west at you. Drive toward it. Wind at your back. Road ahead, the last convoy out, and still rolling. And now, it's time to rest. You can let go of the wheel. The road is behind you, for now. The truck is parked, engine ticking gently in the cold, like a heartbeat slowly returning to calm. Snow drifts around the tires. The canvas cover has stopped flapping. Even Lucy, stubborn and strange, seems to be exhaling. You take a moment. You listen. To the quiet. Not the dangerous kind, but the gentle one. No footsteps in the trees. No engines coughing behind you. No need to check the mirror. Only the soft hush of wind brushing over fields untouched by war, and the rhythmic tap of melting frost dripping from the roof above your head. You close your eyes. Feel the weight in your shoulders dissolve. The tension in your jaw slip away. The ache in your hands fade. You're not on watch anymore. You're not waiting for orders. You're just breathing, and that's enough. If someone asks you what it was like to be a German supply truck driver on the Eastern Front, you'll smile, tired maybe, but whole. because you remember the rattle of the wheels, the coffee that wasn't, the towns that watched, the fire that didn't start, and somehow, all the things you carried, fuel, boots, silence, fear never crushed you. They shaped you. You made it. So now, let your breath slow. Let your thoughts grow soft. Let the road fade behind you like mist in morning light. Because for now, you're safe, and sleep is waiting.